Hey guys, Paul here. We are now literally, at least as I'm recording this, exactly 24 hours away from the Houston, Texas debut of the Red Pill movie. There's links in the low bar if you want to get a ticket or if you want to help us out with a donation for the venue cost, which was actually pretty pricey. But at any rate, it's going ahead. We are having this film tomorrow. I'm really looking forward to it. I've already seen it a couple of times, and it's a definite blast. There are some tickets left. We have done very well with the ticket sales, almost sold out at this point, but we've got a few seats left. So if you want to join us tomorrow night at the River Oaks Theater in Houston, if you can, by all means join us. And when we're done, we're going to have a Q&A with myself and Robert Franklin. Also, after that, we are all going to pile just a little bit down the street to one of my favorite old English-style pubs where we're going to see how many pints of good beer we can down in the few hours that are remaining after the movie. Again, that's at 7 o'clock tomorrow night in Houston. If you can make it, feel free to be there. We'd love to have you. I haven't produced much content in the past couple of weeks. As a matter of fact, I haven't produced any, and there's a reason for that. And there's the same reason why I'm not doing one of my produced videos now, are the ones where I go on camera and then take it into post-production. I have had, and I'll get some of my whining out of the way, I've been dealing with kidney stones. And I know that'll be a delight to some of you guys out there who don't like my work, but that's fine. But man, I tell you what, even if you're the worst feminist in the world, I wouldn't wish kidney stones on anybody. I suggest not getting them, although I don't know if there's really a lot anyone can do to prevent that from happening. But I can tell you, man, if morphine won't really stop the pain, that'll give you an idea how painful they are. Luckily, I'm past all the crisis stuff. I'm scheduled to go in and get them all blasted out. I'm looking forward to that. But anyway, that's why I haven't been online much lately. Getting that attended to and getting ready to move at the same time, it's all been a bit of a hassle. But enough of my whining, enough of my complaining about life, and let's move on to some good news. And one of those items of good news overall is that I think 2017 is shaping up to be one fantastic year for the non-feminist sector in this world. And I'm including MGTOW, I'm including MRAs, I'm even including PUAs and all the other people out there that are just sick and tired of the bullshit narrative that's being peddled as gospel truth in this society for the past 30 or 40 years. You can just feel it. I don't know if you've been noticing, but it seemed like it started with Brexit. The good people of the UK, of Great Britain, decided, you know what? I don't think we much like being governed by a bunch of leftist autocrats from Brussels. Maybe we'd like to choose our own path. Maybe this whole European Union thing isn't shaping up to be quite the nirvana that it was projected to be. And they said, fuck that and fuck you, and got out. And of course, the butthurt followed and is still continuing to this day about that vote. But vote the people did and exercise their will. And then here comes Donald Trump, who, and while I don't see the guy as a panacea of any kind, he has things going for him that I think we really desperately need. I was just watching him on TV tonight when he talked about Time magazine naming him Person of the Year and said he'd rather be Man of the Year. And he asked his audience, and they cheered resoundingly, including the women. Now, it may seem like a small thing, but imagine a U.S. president-elect anytime in the last 40 years getting up in front of a lectern, one that had Merry Christmas, of all things, on the front of the lectern, and then saying, I don't want to be Person of the Year, I want to be Man of the Year. I mean, that would have been political suicide before. And now it's becoming a political asset. What used to be an asset is quickly becoming a liability, and what used to be a liability is quickly becoming an asset. In other words, we're winning this motherfucker, and it's about time. And then to put the icing on the cake, so to speak, Phil Davies, who spoke at the International Conference on Men's Issues 16 in London in June of this year. The MP that gets up and speaks at a men's rights conference in front of a lectern that had men's rights or human rights on it, in the company of people like A Voice for Men and Justice for Men and Boys, has now been elected to his country's parliament on women and equality, to their committee on women and equality. And of course, can you imagine the butthurt that is flowing out about that? Of this strident, no-nonsense, anti-feminist type is now on their parliament's committee on women and equality. Can you imagine the fucking thorn in the side this guy's going to be for these idiots that have run free rein over policy? And it may not really affect policy. He's one guy. But in the end, I mean, that's how it starts. You get that other voice on that committee, the voice of reason, telling the truth, bringing actual evidence. And I can tell you, I saw the guy speak. His fact-checking, his evidence is just beyond reproach. Totally, completely, 100% empirical. He doesn't go much with opinions. He goes with what the evidence shows. And of course, as we all know, the evidence shows that feminists are full of shit. The evidence shows that feminists are liars and manipulators and con artists and scammers. And he doesn't mince words about that either. So there you go, UK, on your Parliament's Committee on Women and Equality. You now have a guy who some might call an MRA, or at least an MRA type, on there. And I think it's going to look real good on you. And you know, when you think about it, and again, I got to get into an area of my supreme ignorance, of which there are lots of areas in life where I have that. But I do know that this stuff really didn't start with Brexit. Believe it or not, unless I'm mistaken, and I know that you guys will come and correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but this really didn't start with Brexit. It started before Brexit in India, where basically their ruling party of leftist idiots all but got wiped out in the elections. And now the parliament, what was a majority is now a very decided minority, and the majority are people that tend to be non-feminist or anti-feminist and sympathetic to men's issues. So there's something going on in the world here that even crosses the barrier between East and West. And I think that's really important. And hopefully that happening will solve a problem that I have, is that despite some of my better efforts, I really don't know shit about India. And I mean, I suppose I'm like a lot of Westerners, particularly ones who haven't been there, which is almost all of us. I don't know anything about India. I know it's a very complicated landscape in terms of religion and politics. I know that you're going to have to sit down and really study the situation and talk to a lot of Indian people before you can even become halfway informed. And I am trying to do that. As a matter of fact, in our next conference in Gold Coast, Australia, it is being co-sponsored by two Indian men's rights groups, the Save Indian Family Foundation and the All India Men's Welfare Association. Also, following that, in 2018, I'm going to be taking a trip with a delegation of a few people from different Western countries to go to India and meet with these folks personally and to try to learn from what they're doing. Because you know what? Usually where America leads the way on things or some other Western country leads the way on things, we have the exact opposite scenario here where it comes to men's rights. It is India's culture. It is the Indian country that is producing a huge amount of MRAs, and they are organized and they are efficient and they are beginning to weave their way into the political structure of that country. They're beginning to influence opinion all around them, and we have a lot to learn from those guys. And one of the things I love about the Indian MRAs is that they're not ashamed to be MRAs. That's what they talk about, is men's rights. They don't back down from that label like we see a lot of people here in the West do, who basically, uncork and say everything that's been ever said on AVFM in the past 8 years, like they just found out about it. But always got to throw that last thing in there. But I'm not an MRA. Because, they can't be like for men's rights. Because that's just, I guess the way I look at it is that is just a way to make sure that you're still keeping your head down with just enough gynocentrism that you feel protected. I mean, we even had a group, I found out, and I'm not going to name who they are, but I will tell you they're from Australia, that were started out as a men's rights group. And I think they still are, as a matter of fact, but they actually toyed with the idea, I got this through back channels, that they were going to name their organization Men's Respect. Think about that. Men's Respect. Because they didn't want to say rights. Because talking about men's rights is just too much like men's rights. So they're trying to figure out a euphemism for human rights. They're trying to put a sugar coating on the idea that they stand behind men's human rights. Anyway, and I understand it. Look, I understand that shit. I understand the fear. I understand we still got a lot of people that just, they feel very passionate about men's rights, but they don't want to be called an MRA, and they feel very passionate about men's issues. Oh, but please don't mention my name. Wow. We have come a long way. The chains of political correctness are starting to loosen. They're starting to rattle some. They are eventually going to break. And then when they do break, you will see every chicken shit and their brother flooding out of the gates. I was men's rights all along. That's me. I've been out here for years advocating for men's rights. You can find my writings at, under my screen name, The Green Lizard, or some other shit like that. But hey, that I'm not really complaining about it. Things are good right now, and that is the way of the world. Everybody knows what we're saying is true. Everybody knows this shit is true. And yet the fear of private retaliation, of rejection, of professional retaliation, all sorts of things has people still waiting for somebody else to pay the price for them. And luckily, there are more people standing up and doing it. I mean, you don't think Phil Davis has paid a price for talking at an event that was co-sponsored by Justice for Men and Boys and A Voice for Men? Well, I'm sure he has. And you saw what happened to Donald Trump during the campaign. Every way to slur him imaginable. But there's the magic. That shit isn't working anymore. So if you're out there still hiding, man, if you feel passionate about this stuff, feel like you want to talk, go ahead and stand up. And I'll say something else too. And again, I'm not naming names here, but I had somebody request, out of the blue, we've planned this conference for months, and the one in Gold Coast I'm referring to. And we have our speakers lined up, and we have great people, people in politics, people in mainstream Australian media, big figures too, not just, small writers in places, but nationally known personalities. We have even Mark Latham, who's a real firebrand of a guy. I love this guy's work, is going to be speaking at our conference. We're doing everything we can to make great accommodations for everyone. We've got it set up. We've got a great schedule. And somebody that's semi-connected to us, not in any official capacity at all, writes me and wants to speak just out of the blue. I want to come talk at your conference, but I don't want to use my real name. I don't want to use my real name. So can you give me a place at your conference to speak, but protect my anonymity? Can you let me rattle on about my ideas and beliefs, which I will not even fucking put behind my real name? Think about that. And the guy didn't have a clue what he was asking me to do, which was basically to stick somebody out there for the media who will be at this event. You can be rest assured there will be plenty of media coverage of ICMI 17 in Gold Coast, Australia. But he wanted me to put somebody out there under a made-up name, and of course the media would find out who he was and then project us all as a bunch of cowards that were hiding our identities at public conferences. And then, of course, not to mention the absolute slap in the face that is, whether they take it as such or not, I do, but when you've got people like Janice Fiamingo and Karen Strawn and Mark Latham and Bettina Arndt and Miranda Devine and Robert Franklin and several others, Augusto Zimmerman, a college professor, university professor in Australia, a very feminist country, all coming to that conference and putting their necks on the chopping block, putting their faces out there behind their real names. And then you got a guy who says, I want you to part room in the company of those people for me, but I don't want to give my name. Sorry, but no thanks. The point is here for me, and again, I had no intention at all of turning this into a whine fest or complaining. I will offer apologies in advance if this all comes out this way. But what I really want to say is that we are engaged in a cultural war where lives literally depend on it. When you look at what happens to so many men whose lives are destroyed, one of the things that Harry Crouch talks about in the Red Pill movie is just one guy he mentions who, after being ripped apart by the court system, just went out in the desert and blew his own brains out. And we all know, from Earl Silverman to 1,000 other nameless men out there who have tried hard to find some justice and failed, that this isn't anything particularly rare. But these are the people this movement is trying to help. And it is going to take some sacrifice. It's going to take some willingness by people. And again, I know everybody can't do it. But we don't get anywhere until enough people with their real faces under their real names are out there talking about these issues and raising hell about it and helping to change the narrative. It's what gives other people permission to do the same thing. When they see us stand up, when they see anybody stand up under the real name and get willing to take some of the slings and arrows that comes with speaking out in an unpopular worldview, and it is still unpopular, who are willing to take the attempts at name-calling, calling us misogynists and hate-mongers and racists and homophobes and Islamophobes and every other phobic and ism that you can possibly imagine. It takes people willing to show that you can stand up and survive that and move forward. And that's exactly what we intend to do. So with all respect to the guy that wanted to just come and speak without showing his name, you're not ready to actually be a real advocate for these issues. May not be popular even in this crowd, but that's my 2 cents worth. Anyway, I hope you guys, I'm going to go ahead and put a link because tickets are on sale for ICMI 2017 in Gold Coast, Australia. It's going to be a hell of a party. We've got 3 days of events lined up, including a screening of the Red Pill movie. Director Cassie J will be joining us, along with several members of the Red Pill movie cast, for a Q&A. Then we're having a New Zealand-style hungy after that, which is a meat lover's paradise, but we're working on vegetarian options to go alongside that. Then during 2 days of speaking events after that, we're going to have a full team of volunteer chefs who are going to be out there with large spit roasting contraptions, doing massive pieces of meat. I mean, what else could make a men's conference more complete? And there will be vegetarian options for sure there. But we're going to have like roast pig and roast goat and who knows. You know, it's Australia. There's no telling what's going to end up on that spit. But consider going if you can. That's June 9th through 11th of next year. And we have seating for 400 people. It will be the biggest ICMI to date. We are going to have, most assuredly, media coverage. There could be protests, who knows. But we've got a commitment from the venue, which won't be announced until about a week before the conference, to save those people who are allowing us a place to speak several months' worth of harassment from feminist nutcases in Australia, which Australia has plenty, by the way. We're going to save them that trouble by not announcing the venue till then, saving them maybe 10,000 harassing phone calls. But it's going to be a great time. And you can ask anybody who's been to one of the other two ICMIs before. There's nothing else quite like it in the world. By all means, join us. Let me close out by reminding you, tomorrow in Houston, 7 p.m., the River Oaks Theater on West Gray, we are screening the Red Pill movie. And I'm going to be there in a Q&A along with attorney Robert Franklin, who's with, I believe it used to be called Fathers and Families. Now it's the National Parents Organization. But they're an advocacy group looking to get joint custody as a default setting in family courts. Very good work they're doing. Robert spoke at our first ICMI. He's a great speaker, really bright guy, knows his stuff where it concerns the law. He wasn't in the movie, but he's a good qualified speaker to participate in the Q&A, followed by beer afterwards. Beer is always good, beer and bacon, and we can have both if you want it. But anyway, that's it for tonight. I just wanted to get this one out, say hi to all you guys, let you know where I've been, let you know where we're going to be. And I hope all of you hearing this are doing well in your lives. And until then, we'll see you next time.